Hey everybody, I want to make a short video today to talk about something that took me a little while to master and might be giving you guys some problems too. And that is, how do you align images when you've taken them over a couple of different nights or using different filters and they don't quite have the same orientation, rotation, and otherwise are not lined up. So there are tools that you can pay for that do this. I know PixInsight does it. Photoshop can help you do it. I don't use those tools right now. I use GIMP, which is open source free software, and I also use Deep Sky Stacker. And both of those tools can be used to line up your stars across images. So I'm going to talk to two ways of how to do that. The first one, which I think most of us kind of start with, and that is manually lining up the data. So let me go through a quick example of that. I'm going to have two different sets of data here, one coming from a UV IR cut filter and the other set coming from a dual band filter. These are images that I took last night. So I'm going to go into UV IR cut. I'm going to pick one of these images. I'm going to save it as a file type that's just a little bit easier for GIMP to work with. So saving that as a PNG, and then let's do the same thing for the dual band. Let's open it up and save PNG. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to go into GIMP, got GIMP open, and I'm going to pull both of those into the same workspace so that we can use them as different layers. So here's the dual band. And then over here is the UV IR cut. Okay, and looking at both of these images, let me zoom in a little bit here, 50%. As I toggle this one on and off, you can see that the stars in the images don't line up. So how do we fix this? Very simply, what we do is we take the top layer, we make it semi-transparent by adjusting the opacity, and then I'm going to go down to one of the corners here. I'm going to zoom in further so I can be a little bit more exact. And I'm going to pick a specific star that I'm going to line up with. So let's pick, how about this guy right here? I'm going to use the Move tool to take the top layer and shift it until one of the stars is directly over top of the other, like so. Right, so now this star matches. Now, if I zoom out right now, what I'm going to see is we're going to be pretty close in this corner, but the further we get away, I have some difference in rotation. So I need to account for that now. And the way that I do that is by going back to the corner where I stacked or overlaid those two stars. So let's go back to 200% zoom. Let's find that star. It was this guy right here. That is actually the Veil Nebula, so right next to the Veil. And I'm going to use the rotation tool. So if you're using GIMP, you've got the rotation tool right up here. If you're using a different software tool, provided it has a way to rotate your image, then you're good to go. So in GIMP, the way this works is I click on rotation, and then I click on the layer, and let me make sure I've grabbed that properly so the layer is active. I click rotation, and I need to find the little crosshairs. So here we go. GIMP gives me these little crosshairs, which is the pivot point for the rotation. And I need to drag this over to the star that I line up on. So I'm going to put that star in the crosshairs as centered as possible. And now I'm going to move to the opposite corner, and I'm going to rotate the stars until they are one over top of the other, just like so. All right. So we move in here. There we go. That's perfectly batched up right. Well, perfectly is arguable, but there we go. Now I'm going to press enter to make that change. And if I zoom out, let's make this fit, view, fit image in window. There we go. Now we can see that the two layers are overlapping. And if I wanted to make a quick stretch, so this is my star layer, I'm going to take the star layer and just quickly curve adjusted, bump up the stars, increase the contrast, and then I'll do the same thing here for the dual band layer. I'm going to increase the opacity and adjust the curves. I'm going to bring out the reds here and bring down the contrast. This is just for entertainment purposes. And now I'm going to take the stars layer and I'm going to add it over top of the nebula layer. And now we have UV IR cut stars overlaid over top of the dual band nebula, which if I was actually processing the image, I would take out the stars first using Siril, and then I would do this type of stacking here afterwards. So that's one method. Now the other method, which I think is even easier, is using Deep Sky Stacker. So in Deep Sky Stacker, I'm just going to quickly stack a couple of images here as a demo, and I'm not going to use any calibration frames. I'm going to start with the darkest images, so the ones that are the most restrictive, that are going to show me the fewest stars. So I'm going to bring them into Deep Sky Stacker. I'm going to check them, register, and I'm going to pick one as my reference. Right, so this is my reference. It's the highest scoring one. Use as reference frame. And then I'm going to quickly do a compute offsets and stack. Okay, so what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to stack this set of data and the UV IR cut set of data with the same reference. Now, this works best if you have a lot of data. So if you've got 15, 20, 30 images that you're stacking, or 30 frames that you're stacking, then by picking the same image that belongs to a different type of data as your reference frame is going to have very little impact on the average of the rest of your data. So if you're dealing with only a handful of images, this doesn't work as well. So here we go. This is the dual band version of the image. It's going to be saved as probably autosave 1. There it is. And now I'm going to replace most of those frames other than the reference frame with some of this UV IR cut data. So let's go back to registering and stacking. Let's remove these frames and let's bring in a bit of the UV IR cut frames. I'm going to register, check all and register. Now the reason I use the darker frames for this is for two reasons. First of all, I find that the frame that you use as a reference also kind of baselines the background, how can I put it, the background luminosity, but also because using a darker frame, compute offsets here, a darker frame will more easily match up against frames that have more stars. Right? It'll be easier to line those up. So here we go. We've got the stars offsets computed, and I'm going to go ahead and stack this image. All right, it's auto-saving. And now let's go back into GIMP. And in GIMP, I'm going to bring in those two images as layers. Here they are. So autosave was the dual band, and autosave 001 is our UV IR cut. And once again, so here is, well, it's hard to see because these are very dark files. So we're going to take the dual band filter, and we're going to just quickly do some color adjustments or curve adjustments to be able to bring out the data. So let's just stretch that sucker right down there. And again, this is just quick and dirty because we're just doing a bit of a demo here. Stretch that curve, bring down that side to bring up the contrast. And I'll do that again one more time. Let's do the levels adjustment. So we've got data there. You know what? I don't care about the data because this is just a demo. Again, normally I would be doing this in Siril. So here we go. Bring that up. Bring up the curves really quick just to show something through. Now I'm pushing the curves here because I want them to show through the stars. So I think that is totally fine. So these are the stars now. The stars taken with the UV IR cut filter, and same thing. I'm actually going to use the level setting and push that straight down. And then from here, I'm going to slide this. No, that's too much. Okay. Let's stop here for a second. Let's bring this up. And yeah, in Siril, I'd be able to remove all the green noise. Let's do the levels one more time. Okay, and let's bring up the curves. Let's do a bit of a contrast curve here. So even with the UV IR cut, you can kind of start to see the cloudiness of the Milky Way. This is border late skies. So anyone shooting from the city, from the suburbs, well, I guess you can relate to this. So what I'm going to do here is just do an addition so that I can overlay the UV IR cut stars over the dual band stars, and there we go. So as I'm flipping back and forth, you can see that there is pretty much perfect alignment between the UV IR cut and the dual band imaged source files, which is exactly what we're looking for. So let's bring that up to 100%. This is the file that was generated out of the dual band stack, and this here is now the addition of the UV IR cut filter, and look what happens to the stars. These stars here are very red tinged, which you get out of a dual band, and now we have more natural looking stars coming through. I was just about to wrap up this video when I came across another method of doing image alignment, this time using Siril. So as I've mentioned, I use Siril for image processing. I've never actually used it for stacking because I've always used Deep Sky Stacker. But Siril has a image registration and sequencing function where if you use just the registration, Siril actually lets you align images. So I'm quickly going to go through that now. I'm still learning this process, so bear with me. I have two images here. One of them is of the Omega Nebula shot in a sulfur 2 filter, and the other one was imaged with a dual band hydrogen alpha and oxygen filter. So the process here is to go into Siril and to change the working directory to the folder that contains your images. So let me pull that up. Here's my alignment test. And here are my two images. Okay. So here I need to add the images to the conversion tab. And here's the two images. And click on add. And here I'm going to add both of them to a new sequence. And I'm going to call this Omega Align. And I'm going to hit convert. And it's going to convert these images to, I guess, the FITS format. That should work fine. So convert. All right, we've got the conversion complete. Now I'm going to go to registration. Is that right? Registration. I've got both files selected. I'm in registration, and I'm going to pick the global star alignment method. And using global star alignment, I'm going to pick the green channel, and I'm going to keep everything else as default, and I will click on Go Register. So here it identifies a bunch of stars, and apparently it's done. So let's go into the folder. Okay, so we have some new files that were generated through this process. So there's a couple of alignment files here. That was from our sequence. And then you've got these two files that have an R prefix, R underscore. And these two R underscore files should now be the converted and aligned versions of those two files. So let's actually look at those. Here's the first one, and here's the second one. And look at that. It rotated and shifted so that the two files are in fact aligned. So that is pretty cool. And I think this actually works better than my hack version using Deep Sky Stacker. So I will give this a try going forward. I took an image of Cygnus with a UV IR cut filter, with a dual band filter, and with the Antlia quad filter. So I'm going to look at the differences, similarities between all three of those filters, not from a really technical standpoint, but from a standpoint of what does that actually look like in practice. And so if you're interested, look for that video coming up soon. In the meantime, if you found this video useful, then give it a thumbs up, and that would help. If you want to drop me a comment about any suggestions, if you know other ways of doing alignment of images that were shot at different times with different filters without using paid software like PixInsight or Photoshop. Not that I have anything against those, they're awesome, but this is kind of a video for those of us starting out who are not really investing much in the photo processing side, but do want to be able to do this type of functionality. So if you have advice, I would appreciate it. Please drop me a comment. And otherwise, I guess that's it for this video. Until next time, thanks for watching, and clear skies.